5 go bonkers in a field. The Cuckoo Crew Guide to Misbehaviour. Dickie Dread. And we're now on Chapter 2, The Arrival. It all kicked off back in mid-Wales. Me, packing up the fod wagon with enough scran, cider, drugs, sound equipment, firewood, hope, dreams and a truckload of bad decisions to set off a proper festival. Out on my field, a taxi was already revving his pickup truck, his trailer rattling with logs, his horse box home parked like a silent rebel on the land. We rolled out in convoy, a motley crew of vehicles destined to scoop up the crew. First stop, Corky. We found him well into his beaker, grinning like a dog with someone else's dinner. "Corky!" I bellowed, swinging open the wagon door. The man clambered aboard, clutching his legendary 70cm metal special K straw. He had always been told by a quack to stay away from the drugs. And proclaiming himself a man of medicine, I muttered, "You're a fucking liability," knowing his unpredictable antics were the spark our night needed. He literally fell onto the sofa in the back of the wagon and started prepping a line that would down an adult brontosaurus. Next came Paddy, the eternal latecomer. True to form, he'd been on a train, knocking back drinks and hauling his battered tent along with his granny-style trolley on wheels. Clad in the same threadbare duds as the last festival, Paddy finally ascended the steps into the back of the fod wagon. Train was slow, he slurred, and we traded our customary banter. Train was on time, I shot back, whilst Paddy just grinned, like it was all the same song to him. With Corky and Paddy riding shotgun with me in the fod wagon, we hit the road for a 2-hour drive towards the festival site. But first, because no proper convoy runs on an empty bellies or dry throats, we had to refuel. I pulled over at a supermarket. Inside, every bottle glimmered like a promise of pandemonium. While Taxi and Corky jabbered about cider and vodka and reminisced about the days when special brew was special, Paddy turned ale selections into a full-blown sacred ritual. With his meticulous autistic precision, he sniffed, compared, juxtaposed and debated each label like a sommelier, chasing the perfect brew. An hour slipped by as we waited, the air thick with anticipation and idle banter. We all knew from experience, if we tried to rush this ritual, it would only take longer. Patience is the key. Finally, Paddy emerged, arms laden with his carefully chosen liquid treasures, a curated arsenal for the wild nights ahead, and his customary extra bottles of wine and spirits for bedtime and breakfast, his straighteners, his edge removers, his deburring tools. Back on the road, the fod wagon bounced along winding lanes, carrying Corky, Paddy and me into our plan. Tunes blazing. Stu's pickup truck rumbled behind, its engine thumping a steady beat of rebellion. As we crested the final rise, the half-built, half-wild festival grounds unfolded before us, flickering lights, tarps snapping in the breeze, and the low murmur of an eager crowd. 2 days of utter mayhem lay ahead. We rolled in like a bona fide motley crew of misfits, music up to full volume and windows down, signalling, "We're here!" Up front, Corky's raucous laughter rang out, his special K straw twirling like a defiant banner. We scouted about and found a suitable spot. Taxi, as steady as ever, took a measured sip of cider, Captain Bourbon at his side like a four-legged bouncer, as I cranked up the speakers. With a blast of scar, the fod wagon bounced over the final stretch. Paddy tumbled out in his inimitable style, hitting the dirt, rolling, then springing up with his arms flung in away. Ta-da! And only he could pull off. Heads turned, a few groaned. Someone muttered, "Oh no, it's that fucking lot." The Cuckoo Crew had landed. The dusk burst into life as we set up camp. A debate sparked when the first fires caught the approaching darkness. "Could be smart," mused Taxi, "to save the best drugs until later, keep the wood pile stocked." "But," Corky argued, "we could just do a wee bit of everything." "Can't do a wee bit of fire," I snapped, laying down the law. "Aye, but we don't have to do it all night," Taxi reasoned. "Fine," I conceded. "Early night, but not too early." We put some blues on, a vain attempt at calm in the evening. the flames flared proper, and sure as rain, in a Welsh summer, a few folk began drifting over. Faces old and new, bottles and bangers passed around like sacred relics, the night stretching out relatively mild yet inviting. Then, as if on cue, Elliot appeared, lanky, shadow-eyed, turning up just as the party was taking off. "All right, lads," he called, sniffing the air. "Where's Miss Stew?" Corky nearly choked on his drink. "What fucking stew?" Elliot frowned, as if we were the stupidest question of the week. "The Dicky stew, the one I was told about 2 days ago." "You never told us shit," I growled, flicking a roach into the fire. Aye, I did. I said, "Make sure there's stew Thursday night. I'll be round." "That's not an agreement," Paddy muttered, rubbing his face. Elliot crossed his arms. "So there's no stew?" "No stew yet," Taxi confirmed. Elliot sighed long and deep, a man whose faith in humanity had just been thoroughly tested. "Bollocks," he muttered. "Fuck off, Elliot," Paddy grinned, passing him a drink. Then, as if on cue, a young couple of raver types wandered over, fresh-faced, buzzing with anticipation. "You got any acid?" they asked, eyes shining. Paddy blinked, still teetering. "You've got acid?" They shook their heads. "No, we were hoping." "Then fuck off," Paddy grinned, taking another swig and stumbling back towards the fire as laughter erupted from the crew. The poor youngsters turned and left empty-handed. Corky howled. I cracked a smile, and Taxi patted Captain Bourbon, who watched the entire scene with the calm of a dog who'd seen it all before. The night wrapped around us, warm and wild, as the festival had barely begun. We already knew we were in for a legendary ride. Just as the embers were starting to cool, around 2 a.m, Steve ambled in on foot, battered tent on toe and boots clomping through the dew. "Evening, lads," he called, a mischievous grin plastered on his face. Corky and Paddy, raucously swapping towels by the fire, jumped up to help him erect his nylon nightmare. Naturally, their assistants turned the job into another glorious mess. Steve's tent ended up haphazardly erected. With a shrug and a smirk, Steve settled into his misfit shelter, with his warm boots defiantly sticking out the entrance like rebellious sentinels. As the hours melted away and the derangement settled into a comfortable hum, the raucous music finally drew to a close. Around 2 a.m, we were told by a slightly embarrassed steward, in no uncertain terms, to turn the music off. Reasoning that it was only day 0, we complied. Taxi, never one to let the night end without a proper send-off, grabbed his guitar, strummed a couple of soulful tunes, a lullaby for the misfits. I crashed in the fod wagon, the metal creaks and fading beats lulling me into blissful dreams. Taxi tucked himself away into the back of his pickup. Captain Bourbon curled up like a silent guardian by his side. Elliot, ever the lone wolf, retreated to the sanctuary of his van. Meanwhile, Corky and Paddy weren't ready for sleep yet. They sat by the dying fire, laughing and trading wild tales of festival prowess into the dark, their voices mingling with the crackle of embers and the well-known sounds of snorting. And so, with our individual slumbers taking hold, under the spell of a night well lived, day 0 closed, a raw, unfiltered prelude to the storm of music, madness and mayhem that was about to break over us at the festival. Nearby punters slept with a sense of anticipation and hope. Silly fools.